Okay, we are at number 5.
Yes, we are in the top 5, folks.
5 is the number of the counting, and the number of the counting shall be 5.
5.
4 is right out. But at number 5, I have Signals. But we're not going to talk about that one yet.
Yes,
what are we going to talk about?
Yet. My number 5 is Counterparts. He's got another amazing audio fidelity version of this.
So the story with the SACDs, I'll be brief, is that way back 100 years ago, Mike and I used to have this radio program called Prog Rock Deep Cuts. And I would regularly receive promos from pretty major labels. And I don't know if Audio Fidelity counts as a major label, but they sent me these 2 albums as promos. And I'm really grateful for that, because now I actually have a Blu-ray player that plays SACD, so I can enjoy these. I missed out on Roll the Bones, which is the other one that they put out, and they also put out Hemispheres. I totally missed out on those, and I regret that, because now these go for like $75 a piece.
They are expensive, and I think they're out of print too, aren't they?
They're out of print, but they are the best sounding versions of these albums that I've heard. And I'm going to go out on a limb here and possibly start a fire in the comments section by saying that I think this is the best produced Rush album of all time.
I mean, I think you might be right.
So why do we love Counterparts?
Man, I always really loved this album, but this listen in particular really put a fire on me on this album. This album
was it a cold fire?
It was a cold fire.
Well, we'd like to do for you a song right now that shows the new direction of our band. This is country and western music, as you know. Yes, we decided to change. It's a good old-fashioned country song called Cold Fire.
We'll get to that song also, because that's another one that I love to pieces. But this, man, the thing that struck me the most about this album this time is how inspired the band sounds. There is a lift behind every single song on this album. They're cooking. They're having fun. They just kick major ass. It feels like there's like an energy here that hasn't been felt in a long time, maybe since like Power Windows, honestly. They're just cooking and loving what they're doing. And it just comes off in all this material. It like elevates everything on here. Yeah, even maybe the weakest song is like The Speed of Love, but it elevates it because the band is just so inspired playing this music. And it's, even that's just a decent song. It's good. It's just such an inspired album. And it's got Animate, which is one of the best opening songs in the whole catalog. Nothing, I think, exemplifies the tone of an album quite like Animate does. And it's got that iconic opening drum part too. It's so good.
A drum part you can sing.
Yeah, it is another drum part you can sing.
Yep.
They're just firing on all cylinders in every way on this album. And then you get Stick It Out after that, which is maybe the heaviest Rush song. And it rips to pieces. I think my favorite song on here is Cold Fire.
Mm-hmm.
Cold Fire is a seriously killer deep cut, and it has a terrific guitar solo also. Totally amazing. Between Sun and Moon is also amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Leave That Thing Alone is one of the best instrumentals in the whole catalog. Again, another one that was really fun on the Time Machine tour.
Well, you got Stick It Out on Time Machine too, right?
Yeah.
How was that?
Ripping.
Yeah.
It was so great. It was ripping. And then I think the other massive song on here is Nobody's Hero, which is such a beautiful song, man.
That's a peak ballad for them.
It is a peak ballad for sure. Yeah. I just love it. There's swagger on every song too, especially Sun and Moon and Alien Shore. The band is just like strutting their stuff. They're grooving. There's another Neil's lyrics are really strong on this album too. There's a lot of relationship material on this too.
Yep. Which is a theme that dates back, maybe to like Inner New, but then it was explored on Hold Your Fire.
Yep.
And then to a somewhat greater degree on Roll the Bones. So I almost feel like that whole relationship thread is something that just picked up right where Roll the Bones left off.
Yeah, I think so too. It's a very natural progression.
Mm-hmm.
It's great. It pays off in dividends on this album.
Yes.
It's number 5 for a reason. It's amazing. It's one of the strongest in the catalog.
I have this at number 7, which seems maybe a little bit low for me because I've always really loved it. But you talked about how this was like maybe their strongest album since Power Windows. And I think it's interesting to note that this is the return of Peter Collins as producer. And I'm kind of the opinion that they should have worked with him throughout the rest of their career because he seems to be a good fit for them. And not only do you have 4 really great sounding Rush records and really well produced and arranged Rush records, but you have 4 of the most diverse sounding Rush records. I feel like Peter Collins got them, and he got what they were going for each one of these albums, because if I didn't know any better, I would have no idea that the same guy who produced Power Windows and Hold Your Fire worked on this, because they don't sound like they're in the same universe. This, of course, is the album where the keyboards went bye-byes. They're there just a little bit. There's like a little bit of like fills or something in Animate. But one time I heard this story where, or maybe I read it, where, Alex had said no keyboards on this album, and Geddy promised him no keyboards on this album. And so they roll up to the studio to start work on this. And here comes Geddy dragging his keyboards. And apparently there was like a, like this image of like Alex nearly quitting because here comes this.
That's so funny.
Rack of keyboards into the studio.
Like giving him a goofy look, like
it's like no, Alex, it's just for texture. It's just a little bit here and there. But it was like a standoff. But speaking of the great songs on this album, it's just about all of them. You mentioned Animate being like maybe the best Rush opener in a long time. I mean, like for me, it's up there with like Force 10, Tom Sawyer, Spirit of Radio, too. Big Money. Yeah, sure. Or even Dreamline. Like it's in that, it's kind of in that upper echelon of great Rush openers. Stick It Out and Cut to the Chase are great heavy rock songs. I think Nobody's Hero is like really special. Like it's the first like really, really special song on the album. As just being a song about the heroes that aren't on the news. It's the everyday acts of goodwill in humans. And it's such a beautiful sentiment. And then, Between the Sun and the Moon, with that kind of Beatlesy chorus, it's so infectious. This song feels very 1960s to me. Like it feels like they're heading back for the Feedback album. Which we aren't ranking. A lot of that. We aren't ranking that album. But I hear a lot of that here.
Yeah, you're right. It there's a lot of that kind of era in the grunge music that inspired them, and also in like some of the classic bands, they're reaching back to the 60s era. There's like a revival in the 90s of that kind of music. And it pays off again. It pays off a lot in this album.
I feel that was maybe where a lot of Rush's confidence was coming from, is that you had people like Eddie Vedder saying that, "Oh, I'm a Rush fan." You had Les Claypool. You had Billy Corgan of the Smashing Pumpkins. Like these are all people who grew up listening to Rush, and now they're popular. They're becoming well known, and Rush feels relevant again. They feel relevant as a hard rock 3-piece again, which maybe hadn't been the case for the past couple of years. But you hear this influence from Primus in a song like Alien Shore, which has some of Geddy's grooviest, best bass playing ever. And I think I had in my notes at one point that between this song and Leave That Thing Alone, I really feel like this is Geddy's bass record. He is just killing it. Every single track.
Oh, he sounds amazing. Yeah.
It's just incredible. Oh, we should talk about our discovery in Double Agent.
Yes, we have to.
Yes, we have to, because I don't think anybody else has talked about this. So we mentioned that there's the 1812 Overture quote in 2112.
2112, yeah.
And in this song, Double Agent, there's a Mission Impossible quote, or at least I'm pretty sure that's what's going on.
I think so also.
If you listen underneath the solo section where Alex gets to blow, Geddy is very clearly playing the bum 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 bum. And then I think he plays it in a different key or something after that. But it's really sick, and it's one of those just like really funny.
Yeah, it's a wonderful like little comedic moment.
Yeah,
like, it's a song about a double agent, like a secret agent, and it's like, oh, here's Mission Impossible real quick. It's like something Zappa would do, you know?
Yeah, exactly. And I think he did do.
Yeah, it's the eyebrows in the music that's so great.
The best band you never heard in your life, I think he quotes. They do the Mission Impossible theme.
Yes, that band quoted like everything under the sun. Also,
and they did everything. Yeah.
Yeah, Zappa would point and they would do anything. But go on.
But Leave That Thing Alone is maybe my favorite Rush instrumental of all time.
It's amazing.
We are going to rank the Rush instrumentals, by the way, when we're done.
Yes, we are.
So stay tuned to see where Leave That Thing Alone ranks for me. But I do think that even though it's maybe not the classic of the album, that Cold Fire is the best song on the album. It's the one that's the most memorable to me. And in Martin Popoff's book, Contents Under Pressure, Neil Peart says that Cold Fire was the one he was most proud of.
Hey.
And that it was influenced by a Paul Simon song, and I can't remember which one it was, but it was basically a discussion between a man and a woman, and it was like kind of the immature man and the smart woman. Yep. And it was like he said this, and what about this? And then she said this, and then she said this, and she added this. And he just loved the idea of like including an intimate conversation as the basis of a song. And for me, it's the most successful song and the most memorable song on the album. So Counterparts, this is an incredible album. I think it's undervalued.
I agree.
This is my Presto. Like you talked about how like you find Presto to be very undervalued. I think this is the one that is most underrated.
Yeah, it's amazing. I also really like Everyday Glory. I know you're not as huge on it as I am.
I'm not. Yeah.
The second half of that song I think is very impactful. I love it as a closer.
It might grow on me one of these days. We'll see. I felt that The Speed of Love could be the closer because it just kind of feels like it sums up the whole relationship theme.
That's an interesting point. Yeah.
A lot better.
It's still amazing though.
It's an amazing record. Yeah, it's another long Rush record, but I never feel the length of this one.
I think it's justified with this one.
Yep.
You know, like it earns its length, which is a somewhat rare thing, especially for the era in which that came out, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And like considering like a lot of the bands that were still around from the 70s and 60s, like producing albums at this era, Counterparts is like head and shoulders above so many of the other ones.
Yeah, like this might spark some controversy, but you and I were not kind to Thrack.
I know. I used to love Thrack, but not so much anymore. And I think this is a lot better record than Thrack is.
And I would compare this and Thrack because they're examples of an older band that are maybe embracing grunge, but they're also sort of going back to their roots at the same time.
Yeah, and it's way better than like the Division Bell and stuff like that too.
Oh yeah. But I prefer this one to Thrack. So I don't know how some of you will feel about that, but
yes,
I think this is a great album of the era. So we are moving on to your number 4.
Yeah. My number 4 album is one that used to be a number 1, but now it kind of floats. The top 4 for me have been ones that float around as number 1, but now I've kind of landed on a spot. And number 4 for me is Signals. With the dog and the signal for the dog to go to the bathroom, the fire hydrant.
This is one of my favorite Hugh Syme works, by the way.
Mine too.
It's just iconic.
It like kind of creeps up on you. It's like, oh, why would they make a dog and a fire hydrant a cover? But then it's like, it's great. Whatever. It's awesome. It also like there's a lot of inside jokes on the pretend mall map and the back sleeve also, which comes out a lot more on the record. I have a really great vinyl copy that was my uncle's. It's really tremendous and very funny.
But this is a highly valued Atomic CD pressing. This is one of the best sounding discs. I also have the MoFi, the Mobile Fidelity Sound Labs version of this, which is interesting because it's missing the chorus of the weapon.
What?
Yeah, just one chorus comes through and you just hear the instrumental underneath, and I kind of like it. I don't mind it.
That's so weird. It might work better that way. I don't know. That's weird though. It's just all of a sudden missing a chorus.
And I think it's right before like one of the solo breakdowns too. So it kind of works in a way. The other big difference with this and the MoFi version is I think the MoFi lacks a little bit of punch. And I still kind of prefer the Atomic in a way. Signals is my number 5. And I have Grace Under Pressure at 4. So apparently I like Grace Under Pressure a little bit better.
Signals. Look at that.
just a little bit better. This used to be my favorite.
Yeah, me too.
When I saw Rush in 2012, they opened with Subdivisions, and that was like another mind blown. That was the first time my mind was blown that night. It was when they started with that right off the bat, and it was my favorite record of theirs at the time.
Oh wow!
So yeah, why do we love Signals?
One of the biggest strengths is its sequencing, right? Like Subdivisions is such a great opener. Like the way that the tracks are arranged is so strong. It may be like the best sequenced Rush album. Like it just flows so naturally.
You might be right about that.
It's a really wonderful exercise in contrast and relief, much like a good set list is. This album is extremely well thought out and constructed. Also, this is really the reggae album because there's like almost every song has like a reggae feel to it, and it works on this album. It really works.
Unless you're Terry Brown.
Yeah, unless you're Terry Brown, it doesn't work for him. But for everybody else, it works and pays off in dividends. I think this is also really the album where Neil Peart's drum parts start to become like masterful orchestration.
Yeah. Like Digital Man.
Holy crap. Yeah, Digital Man and New World Man are great examples. Like it's just, he's so musical. Like is using the drums and percussion as, an instrument. It's creating like, or it's almost like my uncle and I were talking about this.
Instrument.
Yeah, it's melodic. It's like an orchestra, like composing for an orchestra, but your orchestra is the drum surfaces. It's amazing, and this might be the best Neil album, quite frankly. Every time I hear it, I'm like, oh my God. This album has also a few of my all-time favorites. We have Analog Kid, which is an incredible song that always gets me up on my feet. We have Digital Man.
I think they were written at the same time, right?
Oh, yeah, I think so.
The Analog Kid and the Digital Man.
Yeah, it works. It makes sense. And then you have New World Man, of course, is an iconic classic that was written in a day.
Yep, the last minute song.
Yep. And then one of my favorite ballads, Losing It.
Yes.
That lyric is unbelievable.
It kind of sits with Genesis and the song Duchess.
Yeah, it does. And it has a great violin solo, too.
By Ben Mink, who is Geddy Lee's best friend, I think, outside of Alex.
Yeah, I think
and
so,
he made My Favorite Headache with him. Geddy Lee's solo album he made with Ben Mink.
Yeah, that's right. That's so cool. I also got to say, like, Neil's drums, again, especially during that violin solo, are nuts. That is a terrific accompaniment to the violin solo. Just a total treat for me to hear. Mm-hmm. Just like this album. Even like maybe the weakest song, maybe Chemistry, but every time I hear that song, I'm like, oh, okay, it's not weak. It's great, actually. I love it. So, that's constantly rewarding. This album consistently rewards. Every time you hear it, it's great. I think this is the first one that on the list it's like a masterpiece. This is just, bar none, an amazing album.
Yep.
It's hard to top this. Somehow, according to us, they did, but somehow it's hard to beat this.
You forgot to mention Countdown, which is
that
a song.
One is great.
When I sat down and listened to this, that's the song that surprised me the most because I always liked it, but I really liked it.
I love it
this last time I played it, and I think maybe the band have some misgivings about it for whatever reason, but they were invited to see a shuttle launch, and this was them writing about that experience. And I love that excitement about exploration and the imagery of the shuttle taking off into space.
Cut it with a knife.
You also have part 2 of the Fear trilogy, The Weapon.
Yep. That's great.
The commentary that we cling to weapons out of fear.
Yep.
Is a really nice really nice sentiment. But the knowledge that we fear is the weapon that would be held against us. That too. That's also an interesting weapon. Fear can be weaponized. It can be the opposite.
Yes.
So some of Neil's best lyrics here. They did get a chance to play "Losing It" because they didn't play it originally on the tour, but on the R40 tour they played it with Ben Mink.
Yeah,
and that
I
really
love that.
is something special. That's something special to see.
That's, I think, the highlight of the whole R40 for me is "Losing It."
Mm-hmm.
Like when I, heard that they played that, I was like, jaw agape. Like, they did what? And I love that thing.
We don't have as much to say about this album, but I guess what is there to say? It's a great Rush album.
What is there to say? It's a record that's been, lauded time and again by many folks. It's hard to add something eloquent, but it is truly deserves its reputation. This is one of the best Rush albums. in both of our opinions.
It is, yes. We are at
number 3.
Number 3. My number 3 is Power Windows.
Oh, nice.
Which might be my number 1, but we'll get to that. But your number 3 is not Power Windows. But
no, my number 3 is
similarly titled.
Has the same initials. Number 3 for me is Permanent Waves. I like that cover better than the redo, which I'm holding in my hand. It's kind of a funny redo cover, but I like this cover better. I think it fits the tone of the record better.
Well, look at her hair. She's got permanent waves.
Come on. See? Come on. That's hilarious, guys.
Yeah. Now, does yours have the Dewey Defeats Truman magazine, like the
no, it
newspaper
says blah blah blah, and then and then on the insert is the original cover, which is hilarious. Yeah, this is I have the 2020. It's the 40th anniversary edition, so it's like a remix, and then it has a live concert from the Permanent Waves tour.
Not to be a jerk, but I don't think it's a remix because the tapes are lost for this.
Right, it might be a master.
I think it's a new master, but I think I read that particular version of it is really good in terms of mastering.
It does sound great.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that it's well worth it. And there's also some like unseen images in there, which are great. And there's a memorial to Neil at the end too, because, he passed away in 2020. Much to everyone's loss. The world is a way less good place without him.
Between him and David Lynch passing in the last couple of years, I'm just like, my heroes are gone, man.
Yeah, we've had a lot of artistic loss lately, and it's not great.
By the way, speaking of David Lynch, which I will figure any way to work David Lynch into a conversation, but there is a David Lynch reference in this album cover that some of you may know, and if you look, they thank Henry Spencer and the Baby, which is a reference to the film Eraserhead.
Oh my God, I never caught that.
This is one of 2 David Lynch references that occur in Rush records and specifically Rush liner notes. The other is Roll the Bones, where at the bottom it says, "Now it's dark." That's a reference to the film Blue Velvet, because the character of Frank Booth, played by Dennis Hopper, says that several times throughout the film. Now it's dark.
So, man, I got to watch that soon.
Now
I've been putting it off. What a shame on my part.
Neil Peart called it a comedy classic, so you'll have to find out if you agree with him on that, because some may say he's got a rather liberal definition of comedy.
Yeah, it's supposed to be kind of dark, so
it's pretty dark, yeah. But it's also about the light too. That's a very important theme in Blue Velvet. But I do have the Mobile Fidelity Sound Lab version of Permanent Waves, and I've always liked the cover of it, even though I don't care for the mastering. It's like got weird EQ or something. But I like the inclusion of that photo. I don't remember seeing that before.
Yeah,
I don't think
in this one.
Is that in that version?
But it's separated. They're like up and down rather than directly across.
But that's enough show and tell. So why do we love Permanent Waves so much?
For me, this is Rush in full flight. They have arrived. This is the album where all of it comes together, and they are here. And Spirit of Radio starts with, "Oh my God, this is a mission statement of the band." They're fully formed. I think a big reason why for me too is the sound. I love the sound of this album. It's just like, when I think of Rush, like just the sound of this record is one of the first things that pops into my brain. Because I don't know, it's just the way the tones that Alex uses, the way that the bass and the drums and the guitar interlock with each other on this album. It's just the best, man. It's really amazing. I also mentioned in my notes that this is where Neil really starts to experiment as being a great orchestrator on the drums. Like the parts work so well for all the material here. This also has Free Will on it, which is a favorite of mine. I always love that song, and I never will stop loving that song. That's like Free Will is like the Tom Sawyer for me. It's like that's just an amazing song, and it's so nice to hear a song like that on the radio too.
Oh yeah. Especially that solo section.
Yeah, the solo section is amazing. It's almost like fusion.
Geddy Lee's bass playing during the solo section is more impressive to me than the solo.
It steals the show for me every time. Geddy rips, man. He's awesome.
Oh yes.
It also has my number 1 and number 2 favorite mini Rush epics. And that's Jacob's Ladder and Natural Science. Jacob's Ladder is now my favorite. Man, the stuff that Alex does in Jacob's Ladder, especially at the end, is just genius. All of these really amazing, intricate guitar lines. It's beautiful. It really evokes the like lights shining through the cloud motif that they were going for. It's perfect. The Natural Science just kicks ass.
Do you hear that, by the way?
No.
Okay, good.
Hey, did you hear that? What? Oh, nothing. Whoops. Did you hear that?
Well, there's Beabout, that's me, and then there's Meowsabout, and Meowsabout is at the door.
Oh.
He wants to say hi. Say hi.
Hiya, Servo. How's Buddy doing?
Oh. He's bugging. That's what he's doing.
He's bugging.
He's bugging. But basically, I'm just going to hold him until he gets sick of it.
That's fair.
What you were saying.
Natural Science also absolutely rips. That whole middle section is one of the coolest and most energetic sections in the whole Rush catalog. It's just great, man. It's just beautiful music. Entre Nous is a fun song too. Although I think it's probably the weakest cut on the album, maybe. But it's still a really good song.
I think some will very, very much disagree with that point, but I think I agree with you.
Yeah, it's a great song, but I don't think it's as great as everything else. And you alluded to this before too, but Different Strings really is a little masterpiece, and is one of those songs that I wish would continue on, because it like starts really cooking, and Alex starts playing this awesome guitar solo, and it fades out. It's like, no, wait, where are you going? Come back. It's
enigmatic. It's very mysterious.
Yes.
And Neil talks about in the Pop-Off book, Contents Under Pressure, he says to him, mystery was just a trail in the woods that he doesn't know where it's going to go, or it's a road that he's never been down. He's just obsessed with mysteries. He's in love with mysteries. And I think that Different Strings is one of those songs that really captures that sentiment.
Yeah, totally.
For me, this opens with two absolutely just quintessential Rush songs, The Spirit of Radio and Free Will. You just cannot poke any holes in either one of these tunes. The fact that these are so great, and the fact that they are so readily heard on the radio, is just nothing short of incredible to me. People just who don't know Rush will air drum to this song when they hear it. If they love music and hear this on the radio, they'll air drum along with it. But I love the idea that at that time, I guess there was a Toronto radio station that was freeform. They would just play punk, they'd play hard rock, progressive rock, just whatever they liked. And Neil loved this idea of radio that was curated, but also that you never knew what you were going to get. And that's how you end up with these sections that are more punk rock. You've got a reggae section, you got a hard rock section. Like, this was just Rush surveying what was around at that time. And so like there's a historical context to a song like Spirit of Radio, while also being essentially about the same things that 2112 was about, the freedom of music. And I love that for it. And then Free Will, a song about choice. And, Geddy does have a passage in his book where he yells at anti-maskers, which is really funny. He's like, this is not what free will is about.
That's so great.
My free will is my free will not to get sick.
Yeah, it's a different thing.
It's a different thing.
For
It's not what we intended.
Yeah.
But I still love it, even though it's misinterpreted. Jacob's Ladder is the one that surprised me the most. Like,
it's incredible, man.
I love this song. And, Neil Peart said he's a weather freak. And I think that connects the song to like Force 10 too. But this is one of my favorite Rush epics. And I think this is one of those songs, one of the few songs that would be interchangeable between this one and Hemispheres. Like, I could see this fitting perfectly next to The Trees. And I think they play them rather close together on Exit Stage Left, but I could be wrong about that. It's been a while. Inner New, I think, is the beginning of Rush writing about relationships and kind of getting away from more sci-fi or abstract concepts down to the more intimate. And I like that. It's an important step. And I played this song to death as a young person because it really meant something to me. And I wonder if that's why, upon revisiting it, it's the one that I'm least enamored by. I wonder if I'm just tired of it. But Different Strings, like we said before, really impressed me. But Natural Science, oh my goodness, that is the concert staple. I just love hearing that song live. Particularly Russian Rio, that version of it is really strong.
Yeah, it's amazing.
And I never knew this, but Getty actually said that they extended the Wheels Within Wheels section on Russian Rio, and they shortened the ending a little bit. Yes. And I wonder if that's why I like that version maybe a little bit more than the studio cut, but I still absolutely adore the studio version. This is very close to being my favorite Rush record. And on some days it is.
Yeah, it's floated number one for me is also. It's hard. This one and the next one now like almost kind of fought each other. This almost won out.
Yeah.
They're like really neck and neck.
Our top three are like just the same, but in different orders. But
yes.
Really, the top three, any one could be number one for me. And it's going to be really hard for me to argue with the one that's my number one. Because I do have so much affection for this album. It's almost like they took prog rock and made it accessible. And that's incredible. That's a skill, man.
Yeah, I don't think anybody else has done that, really. It's a uniquely Rush thing. And it's beautiful. It's incredible.
Forget about the new wave. This is the permanent wave.
Yes. It's permanently etched into our musical canon.
All right. So we are now at number 2.
Yeah, the unpredictable choice for me. Number 2, I have Moving Pictures.
All right. And we didn't sync up.
No.
I thought we were going to. We almost did, but Moving Pictures is my number 1. But it doesn't really matter. They're so close.
They're so close.
But why did you pick this one over Permanent Waves? That's what I'm curious about.
Yes. So this one I think has a little more nostalgia quality for me because this is one of the first ones that I heard. I think my first 2 Rush albums were 2112 and Moving Pictures. And this one I think I just have slightly more nostalgic towards. I think side 2 of this album is for me a little stronger than Permanent Waves. I don't know, it just really slaps. The first side is like a string of iconic Rush songs. You have Tom Sawyer, Red Barchetta, YYZ, and Limelight. Just some of the like strongest and most confident material the band has ever made. Especially for me, Red Barchetta. That was like my first favorite Rush song. I just love that piece. It's, a perfect journey of a song, the open road. You're a young, just learning how to drive, and your uncle gives you the gift of an old car.
And cars are outlawed. So it's like,
yes,
it's that science fiction thing coming back. It's sort of like in 2112 where music is outlawed. Now cars are outlawed.
Cars are outlawed. Yeah. It's super cool. I don't think YYZ is my favorite Rush instrumental, but it is iconic beyond belief. And it put them on the map as musicians for musicians' sake.
Oh yeah. Especially those solos.
Yeah, all the solos are just iconic, endlessly singable too. So much fun.
Like Getty's bass harmonics, that's incredible stuff.
Yeah, all of the drum pattern that Neil does is genius through the whole thing. It's amazing.
This is immaculately captured too. It's so well recorded.
Yeah, for me, this is the Geddy Lee bass album because Geddy's bass just sounds unbelievable on here. He plays some stuff.
He almost reminds me of Patrick O'Hearn.
Yeah, a little bit.
YYZ.
Yeah, absolutely. This record is so high for me because of side 2. Side 2, I think, is nigh untouchable music. You have my second favorite Rush song of all time, The Camera Eye. That's my favorite epic also. I don't know what it is about it, but to me, it's like some wild magic put on tape. I just absolutely adore this piece of music. It's got Geddy's best bass playing. It's got amazing lyrics. The tune is very unpredictable and fun. Forget it. It's the best. The build up from the last 7 minutes to the end is just spectacular.
Mm-hmm. It's a mood piece.
It's a mood piece. It's peak. You feel the sense of possibilities in this one. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's interesting that Neil didn't think much of it, but I've always really liked it.
Wow, really?
Yeah.
I love it. I love it to death. And then you get Witch Hunt, which is a super interesting song. The last part of Fear.
Mm-hmm. Censorship.
Yeah. And it has an iconic riff also.
Well, you could almost say like it's censorship, but it's like fear of intellectualism.
Yeah.
It's about book burning, right?
Yeah, more or less. It's like hunting down the ideas that are different from the ones that wish to control the people, right?
Right. Yep. Very interesting.
Yeah, super interesting and important song. Then you get Vital Signs, which is a really kick-ass song that also, I think, points to Signals because it's got that reggae feel to it.
Yeah. Which that is the last minute song, by the way, which makes it even more incredible. But this is Rush. I think this may have been the first time they experimented with like sequencers, and there's like electronic percussion, a little bit of like there's like an electronic program snare drum in there.
Yeah.
Is that moment when Neil plays the fill and the set comes in? It's like a Duchess moment, even though this came out before that album. But that's almost what it reminds me of. But this is my favorite Rush album of all time, and it was very hard to pick that because when I listened to these in Permanent Waves side by side, I actually like Permanent Waves a little bit better. But the reason why I picked this as my number one is that I think this is the Rush album that even people who aren't Rush fans, if they're music fans or classic rock fans, they're probably going to own this and they're probably going to enjoy it. And it's like the ultimate crossover album. And it's a good crossover album. Like there's still elements of prog. Like Tom Sawyer is one of the proggiest things they've ever done. And it's amazing that that's their signature track. It's so full of like iconic Rush moments that I never get sick of it.
That drum break is, a masterclass.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And just the sound, like that synthesizer sound, that was like, that's how he tested, like Geddy would test the sound system whenever they would set up at sound check, and he would hit that, and they just decided to use it to open the album. And to me, like when I think Rush, it's that sound. That's the sound I think of when I think of Rush. But then I also think of like Spirit of Radio almost as much, or a song like Limelight from this album. Red Barchetta is one of those great storytelling songs, and it's about the freedom of the road. I think it's a little bit better on Exit Stage Left, on the video especially. YYZ is probably their most iconic instrumental. It's not my favorite either, but it's probably the one that most people would identify with them. I think Limelight is one of the most special songs in their catalog. Everybody quotes the line, "I can't pretend a stranger is a well-awaited friend." But it's like the introvert anthem.
It's
and
amazing.
I love it. Yeah. I love it that it's so popular because I'm an introvert and I understand it. I'm not super famous, but I don't think they were yet, but this is the album that catapulted them to that level of suddenly where they were concerned about, people are getting a little bit too close to us. We're getting a little bit too well known. I could wax poetic about The Camera Eye and how much I love it, and how much I love Witch Hunt. But Vital Signs is my favorite song on the album because it is so funky and interesting. And I think I said to you earlier this week that I wish it had been like a Can funk groove, like 18 minutes long of Vital Signs. I could have taken that. But I just love the whole message of everybody get to elevate from the norm. Like that's just, again, that's going back to 2112 and sticking to their guns and carving out a path for themselves that was totally unique. But this is the one, folks, for me, that if you don't know Rush, this is the one to own.
Yeah, this is like probably the best first Rush album also to listen to or to own. Like it's a great entry point. That's the word.
Yeah. Neil Peart agreed. He said that he wished the band started here. So.
Yeah, it's a great place to start. And it's, like it's so high because like as far as album construction goes, it's hard to top this. Like this is such a well-crafted album. Again, with the like Signals, like the sequencing of the album is darn near perfect, and it's it sounds so great, and the music is so high caliber. There's energy behind everything here. It's just one of those records that's like one of the best ever made by anybody. We have maybe a somewhat surprise pick for me. Well, for listening, not for me if you know me as a person, but
it might not be a surprise maybe for people who have viewed the channel because I actually just did a video on this album.
Yes, you did.
So I don't know how much more I can say about it that I haven't already. But I guess that's a perfectly good reason to turn it over to you. So tell us, what is, in your opinion, the best Rush album, or I should say, what is your favorite Rush album.
Yes, that's the right word. My favorite Rush album is Power Windows from 1985. I just look at that cover too. I love the cover of this album.
Oh yeah, the whole idea of reality distortion.
Yeah,
and the way that television and media changes the way that we view the world. I love that.
Yeah, it's ever prescient.
Yes.
It's even more important, I think, now.
Yes.
It's a quintessential motif of like writing and art in the 80s is now even more so with everything like AI and social media and all that horrible and somewhat good jazz that we live in today.
Well, and I don't mean to derail this, but I find myself pulling away from it now.
Yeah, so do I.
I'm getting back to reality. I'm disconnecting from media more and more.
Yeah, so am I. Except for the little circles that I find joy in, like the music circles and the reading circles and all sorts of jazz.
Yeah, but I'm trying to read more. Less time on my phone and read more, think more deeply.
Yep, same. I think it's a good thing.
But I think Neil would enjoy that. I think he would like to hear that.
I think so too.
Because that's his thing. He was always the reader. But the one thing I think that I didn't say about this in my video that I kind of said earlier, and that's that this was Rush taking all those genres that they experimented with and they were synthesizing them together. And it was becoming Rush music. Rush was now a genre of music to pull from. And I think that's why this is a really important album. And speaking for myself, this has been my favorite record lately. And Marathon is my all-time favorite Rush tune, with Vital Signs in second place. So I like the weird ones, folks.
Yeah, I do too. I think you're right. This is where the synthesis happens. And I think is maybe why it's, for me, the best one. This is really a high watermark for this band in a lot of ways. I think this is the best lyrics in the catalog. Neil's lyrics are just off the charts on every single song. Yeah. It's like deep,
the theme of power.
Resonant. The theme of power. It's very emotionally impactful. This is a lot about the world that we live in still today.
Yes,
it's
the power of money.
Yeah, the power of money.
Power of commercialism.
Also, the power of everything, really.
The power of love with a motion detector.
Yeah.
The power of nationalism with territories. Like there's so many interesting.
Yeah, the power of, wishing to be, power of escapism in Middletown Dreams too.
Yeah, the power of dreams.
Yes. I don't think we've talked about this much too, but Rush is just three dudes. Like, how do three dudes make so much great sound?
Well, there are actually four dudes on this album because Andy Richards contributes a lot of keyboard work to this.
Okay,
so
there you go.
There's like a ghost fourth member on this record. But they still had to go out and play the stuff live. And look at an album like, look at the A Show of Hands video, and they're pulling it off. They're a three-man rock pop orchestra.
Yeah, it's incredible stuff. Like continually impressive. This is like, for me, this is also one of those albums that really gets me up out of my feet and I just like run around dancing because like it's like a hype up extreme for me. Like the Big Money, Grand Designs, Manhattan Project, Marathon, like that whole run of tunes is like, oh my God, I'm in cloud nine for 25, 30 minutes. Just amazing stuff. Marathon is up there for me as well as one of my all-time favorites, and so is Grand Designs. My favorite Rush song of all time, though, is Middletown Dreams. And that's without
That's question. Your favorite of all time.
That's my favorite. Yeah, I know it's somewhat weird pick.
Now I know a lot of people who say that they don't really like this album, but they love that song. So I don't think it's as weird as you might think.
I hope not, because it's so deserving of it. I think it hits me hard right in the feels. It's so relatable.
Get out of town, man.
Yeah, everyone wants to be somewhere else. You like live this mundane life or whatever, then you like dream you're out playing guitar in a band, or you dream you're touring the world doing some other nonsense.
It's like subdivisions and it's Caravan. Like it's Caravan again too.
Yeah, but it's distilled into one song, and it also surprises you with its structure also, because it doesn't have a traditional song format either. It's just amazing. It's so deep, and it has another one of those really amazing guitar solos in it. I think the best guitar solo on the album might be an Emotion Detector. Just a big sleeper hit for me also. That's probably the song that took the longest to click on this album for me, but my God, is it awesome.
That hook right to the heart of the matter. That just runs through my head all the time.
With the cymbals going la 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 la, right to the heart of the matter. That's magic.
Yeah, that when I saw them in 2012, they played about half of this album. You would have been flipping out.
Yeah, they
did.
My mind.
In the second set, they had the Clockwork Angels string section, so they did Manhattan Project with the strings, which was sweet because there's strings on this album, and that's something I think I mentioned that in my review is that there's a lot of sounds on this album that you might mistake for keyboard sounds, but they're real. Like there's a real choir on Marathon, and there's real strings on Manhattan Project and also on Marathon. The one song that I didn't talk about a whole lot on my video was Grand Designs, and how much I remember listening to this one time. Exact circumstances elude me, but the lyric "Life in Two Dimensions" is a mass production scheme. I remember writing that down in my notes on my phone and just thinking about it for like a whole day. Like, what does that mean to me? Like, I understand the words, but what does it mean to me? And it's like, it's about commercialization. It's about these corporations that buy up things that we love and they just turn them into garbage. It's Disney.
Yeah. It's 100%.
It's Amazon Prime buying up the Lord of the Rings, like and James Bond, very recently. It's that whole idea of once things become corporate, they lose what makes them special, and you have to pop up out of the surface. It's the 2112 thing all over again. I love that these themes circulate throughout the catalog, and I feel like Rush is one of those catalogs that do have some of the best and most well-rounded themes throughout their entire career.
Yeah, absolutely. For me, it's just a really special record. I don't know. It's one of my favorites of all time. I love it to bits. Can't get enough. I listened to it twice in a row, I think, when we did the re-listen. And that says something, too. Like, it also has The Secret Territories, which is a really powerful song.
Yes.
Resonant in all ways, really. But yeah, this is my number one. There was no contest. I was like, should I put this above Moving Pictures? And when I put it on, I was like, yeah, there's no question for me. This is my ranking, and my number one is Power Windows.
It's my favorite lately. So I felt like by me going with Moving Pictures, that was my way of being that thing that people probably would expect. But I like that you went for this one because it's maybe my favorite at the moment too. This is an incredible record, and I feel like people who are fans of the band, who really love the band, know that.
Yeah.
But I think it needs to be discovered still by a wider audience.
Yes, absolutely. It's another one that has a lot of appeal. Also, it's got that 80s sound, but it's not cheesy. It's done really well. Like you said, there's analog instruments on it, and they interweave it well with the synthesizers and the guitars. It's great. Mm-hmm. Love it. Love the sound.
And there's a lot of stuff that's played by Alex that you wouldn't necessarily think is guitar, but it's very important parts of the track. Like I feel like he's better represented on this album than maybe people give him credit for. I know at the time he said that he felt like he was just a session player, like he'd been demoted or something because Peter Collins was bringing in all these elaborate arrangements. That was his big thing. But I actually disagree with Lurks. I think that by forcing him out of his box, he came up with some of his most creative material.
Yeah, I agree. 100%.
Ever, really. I think it's some of his most creative playing.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Some of his best stuff is here. No question.
All right. Well, is there anything else we want to say about this before we say goodbye to the folks? This is it. We've reached the end.
Yeah. Are we going to do the instrumental ranking, or is that a different thing?
Yes, let's do that. Do we want to talk about each one of these, or do we just want to rattle them off?
I think we should just rattle them off.
Yeah. I'm kind of talked out. I think
we've talked about them in each album.
Right, yeah. My number 7 is Malignant Narcissism, and I know you really like that tune.
Oh, wow.
And maybe it'll grow on me, but it just kind of struck me as being kind of like Limbo from the Test for Echo album, where it was just like a collection of ideas that they just kind of all strung together. And I wasn't sure if they fit so well. The Limbo is my number 6, and maybe I like it less, but I put Limbo at number 6 simply because I like that little King Crimson quote. What can I say?
Yeah, that's fine.
I like a shameless King Crimson reference. But at number 5, I have The Main Monkey Business, which I think is a very good song, very good instrumental. And it's one of the 3 from Snakes and Arrows, even though I'm not ranking Hope. It's more of just a solo piece. But I actually really enjoy the composition of Main Monkey Business, and it doesn't feel throwaway to me. Number 4 is Where's My Thing? This is a funky tune from Roll the Bones that lost out to the Best Instrumental Grammy to Eric Johnson and Cliffs of Dover, which is okay. I get it.
Yeah, deservedly so, I suppose, right?
Yeah, but Eric Johnson was opening for Rush at the time, so if you saw Rush on the Roll the Bones tour, you would see 2 Grammy-nominated instrumentals played that night, which is pretty freaking sweet.
That's bonkers, yeah.
YYZ is my number 3, although maybe for some people it should be higher. We already talked about this at length. I just think it's the most iconic Rush instrumental. And then at number 2, I have La Via Strangiato, although I'm not sure I agree with that at this time of speaking. I might actually rank that as my number 1 occasionally. But, I just love the idea of it being about Alex's dreams, and it's just an incredible workout for those guys. And it's by far my favorite song from Hemispheres. And then at number 1, I have Leave That Thing Alone. It might be controversial, but watch the version on Time Machine. That is just some jaw-dropping stuff. And this is one of Geddy's best songs in terms of bass. But what I love about this song is that it's so far-reaching, and it has so many different contrasting sections of kind of rock and more kind of trippy sections, but it does so in just a short amount of time. It's easy to cover that much ground when you have 11 minutes to do it, or 9 or 10 minutes to do it, but to do it in a 4 or 5 minute space, it's much harder, and I think this is their finest instrumental. It's maybe the one that brings me the most joy year after year. So, Mike, tell me yours.
Great. That's a good list. My Rush instrumental ranking goes as follows. So at number 7, I have Limbo. It's a nice song to hear, but it's pretty forgettable.
Yeah.
I can't really sing you a note of Limbo at any given point. It's a nice tune, but it's, doesn't have the staying power as the other ones. Number 6, I have The Main Monkey Business, which is a really nice tune, but I just like the other ones on this list a little more than that one. It's good stuff. At number 5, I have Where's My Thing, which is part 4 of the Gangster of Boats trilogy, whatever that is. It's a great and funky number. Huge fan of that one. I think it's great. And, that one being at number 5 shows how strong and Rush is at writing instrumentals. There really is nothing quite like a Rush instrumental to get your fire under your belly. You know what I'm saying?
It's true.
Number 4, I have YYZ, which is the most iconic instrumental maybe in rock and roll history. It's just great, but the other ones on this list I like more than that one. Number 3, I have Malignant Narcissism, which is probably our biggest deviation. I think the spontaneity lends strength to this tune. For me, it's a lot of fun to hear. They're just kind of improvising, and I love improvised music, so it's right up my alley, as they say. Number 2, I have Leave That Thing Alone, which is a really amazing tune. It's a completely awesome piece of music. It's well constructed, well played, and again, as we've mentioned before, the Time Machine version is really something special. Like a highlight of the Rush career, in my opinion. And then at number 1, I have La Villa Strangiato, which is the band firing on all cylinders. It's a great concept about Alex's dreams, and it's just an awesome piece of music. Really a notch in the crown of Rush, really.
High watermark.
High watermark, that's it.
That might actually be my favorite closing track of any Rush record, is maybe La Via Strangiato.
It's a really good pick.
Even though maybe Vital Signs is my favorite Rush song, I am just going to be deliberately obtuse and pick that as my favorite closing track.
There we go.
Well, Mike, this has been fun.
It's been a blast.
Between this one and the Crimson video, I didn't have nearly as much fun with Crimson. I'm not sure why that is, but maybe it's because Rush has that spirit of happiness. Like pretty much all of the Rush records have that. They just have a vibe to them that's totally unique, and I think it's something to do with the friendship that those 3 guys had. And this is truly a unique one-off band in the history of rock and roll. How many bands stayed together, the same lineup for 40 years and covered so much ground?
Yeah.
That's the impressive thing, and made records that were really hard to rank because a lot of them are just of similar quality across the board. And I think for both of us, a lot of it just came down to just personal taste, experience, our history with the records. Like that ended up really predicting the top 10 or so, or the top 5.
Rush is a consistently unique band that always pushed themselves and always made great music. There's not really a bad album in the bunch. They're so hard to rank because they're almost all of them are of a quality of excellence.
Yeah. And there'll never be another one.
There'll never be another one.
Them.
Yeah, there's never anyone like Rush. It's like a band that's remained friends for so long, making the same music together. It's really a joy to re-experience. I still want to hear more Rush, and I've listened to nothing but Rush for 2 weeks. And that says something.
Yeah. I listened to Rush and Tangerine Dream exclusively for like 2 weeks, and that was just it was such a contrast, but it also kind of worked. It was like, the Tangerine Dream was kind of like a relief from all this Rush craziness, and vice versa. Like when I got sick of kind of listening to Tangerine Dream all the time, I switched to Rush, and it was like, oh, this is a totally different feel. But I want to, of course, encourage you folks at home who are watching and listening to like this video, to subscribe to the channel, and leave your comments. Tell us what your ranking is, and just general feedback on our work here. But again, be nice. I mean it. Be nice.
Yes, be nice, please.
See how nice I am? Be nice. Anyway, well, Mike, it's been a pleasure, and I hope to do this again with you sometime real soon.
Yes, me too.
But yeah. See you later, my friend. This has been fun.
Yeah, it's been a blast. See you soon, my friend.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.